So Donald Trump has said that Syrian refugees are not our problem, and that Syria is not our problem. And in light of the events of this week, do you think that Syrian refugees are going to be our problem now?
Yeah, they're our problem now. They're his problem now. I mean, I think, he goes from saying that, Syrian refugees are trying to come in as terrorists to saying, like, oh, they're all God's children, and I was crying over what happened. And, to my mind, all that happened was that, like, 3 days ago, 200 people got gassed, and then yesterday we launched 59 Tomahawk missiles at them. So I think that if we're going to continue our military posture in Syria, we have to couple that with acknowledging that we have a responsibility also for the refugee crisis.
Absolutely. Tamika, tell us quickly a little bit about how you started your work, your personal story got you organizing.
So my parents were always involved in activism. They still are right now. But I think it became sort of my own movement when my son's father was murdered. My son is now 18 years old. He's on his way to college. And when he was 2, his father was shot and killed and left in a ditch for 2 weeks before his body was discovered. Once we received his remains, he was fully decomposed, and we were never able to really put him to rest properly. And, it was kind of embarrassing to try to tell that story, right? I came from a very upstanding family, and to try to explain that he had been involved in illegal activity and got killed, it was really difficult. But, at some point I began to ask the question, why? Why was he even in the situation that he was in? And why did I have to join a club of so many other young black women who had lost their children's father to the same fate, to gun violence or some other type of violence? And when I started pulling back those layers and looking at how his drug-addicted mom and the poverty from which he came from, and all the issues, the fact that he had not been properly educated, and also looking at the idea that the shooter is just as much of a victim, the person who killed him. And we don't always want to accept that, but that is the reality of what is happening in communities, marginalized communities every day. And when I began to look at those issues, I realized that just focusing on the gun as a part of the conversation was a waste of time. I had to really look into the systemic issues that he was facing that would even put him in that situation at that time. And that's when I think I became my own activist, not just my parents' child who was an activist.